And then one more thing is also, I mean, there's so many confusing things. Is this thing the Doomsday plane, the E-4B Night Watch that supposedly you only use that for when the US is under massive attack or something. Those planes were in the
Yeah,
Andrews military base, joint base
yeah.
in Maryland. So that's giving people the impression that this is very serious, that they are even doing that, preparing for the worst or something. Is that also some kind of a put up a show, or do they really serious preparing for something like that?
The extraordinary thing is we don't know, but I'm going to make a guess that it was not for show, because if it was for show, they would have publicized it much more than they did. So
Okay.
my own guess is that in the middle of everything else, I mean, there was quite a lot of panic going on in Washington. As I've discussed many times, I'm a good person to analyze and smell panic, if you like.
Hmm.
Uh, um, I used to have to deal with people who were in a state of panic many times in my career. So I understand panic well, and I can see the signs of it. There was an awful lot of panic here. I mean, they didn't know what was going to happen. They weren't sure how Iran was going to react. They weren't sure how other countries might react. And, they were doing all of these things because they were scared. If you read Trump's social media posts with an eye to looking for panic, it is all over it. It is all over his Truth Social posts, and especially on that one particular day, he was getting more and more frightened.
Well, that seems very reckless if they don't seem have a good assessment of what Iran is going to do or other countries going to do, but yet they did that. I mean, they just bombed Iran and without knowing too much. Isn't that very, very reckless? Extremely, utterly
I mean, to
irresponsible.
say that it is reckless, utterly irresponsible. These words that you use are correct, but they are not strong enough. There is no word sufficiently strong to describe how terrible this whole thing was. I mean, these people absolutely did not know what they were doing. I mean, they launched themselves on something over which they had no control. You don't get any sense that there's any wider discussion within the administration as to what they would do. There was apparently a lot of rows and a lot of anger and a lot of shouting and all of that, but there was no considered proper decision making process, no real idea for an exit plan,
Mhm.
no real objective, clear objective defined. I mean, it was unbelievable. And I am sure that you have seen, and I'm sure that the people of China have seen, that utterly, I mean, it's shameful, incredibly alarming interview of Tucker Carlson's with the American Senator Ted Cruz,
Mhm.
in which
Yeah.
he's advocating an attack on Iran, and he doesn't know the size of the country, the makeup of its population, the size of that population, basic facts about it, and against a country against which he knows nothing, he's insisting that the United States go to war.
And yet, when Tucker Carlson pointed it out, he didn't seem like alarmed by it. He seems like that's not a big deal. So if I don't know the population, what's the big deal? We can still, bomb it, attack it, or something. He didn't see the problem. You see, that's the incredible part
No,
of
he
it.
didn't see the problem. He was furious with Tucker Carlson. He was so angry with Tucker Carlson, not
Yeah.
not acknowledged in any way that you should actually take the trouble to learn something about the country you're intending to attack. I mean, it's just unbelievable, actually.
Yeah.
But the whole affair exposes the utterly chaotic nature of the decision making process in Washington. You can't even talk about a decision making process in Washington anymore.
Mhm.
I I think people in China, perhaps more than anywhere else, need to understand this. You are not talking about a government anymore. I mean, this isn't how any government works. It's certainly not how the Chinese government works. you're talking about a random selection of people, some of whom don't even have government positions. I understand that Mark Levin,
Yep.
who is a Fox News host, was coming in and out of the White House and talking to Trump. I've heard that Laura Loomer was, and she's what, 20? I mean, I don't know what
Mhm.
age she is. She was doing the same. I mean, there is no proper structured government of the United States in existence at the moment. There are people who hold important offices. There's still a Secretary of State. There's still a Defense Secretary. There is no national security advisor. I mean, Rubio is supposed to be
Mhm.
shadowing that for that job, but how can he be?
Mhm.
But I mean, and by the way, I mean, this is just an extreme version of it with this administration, but I don't think it's that better
Mhm.
with other administrations. I mean, we've just had another administration where we now know that the president was basically senile
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
wasn't able to fulfill his functions.
Mhm.
So we don't have a functioning government in Washington anymore, and that makes it incredibly difficult to predict the kind of decisions it's going to make. I just imagine. I mean, in China, I mean, the Politburo, the Standing Committee of the Politburo. You have the State Council. You have all of
Mhm.
these various bodies. It's there is a structured system through which these decisions are made. They're not made in this crazy way from one day to the next, with the president communicating his thoughts to the world, on his social media platform, which he himself owns, by the way, just to
Mhm.
make it even more bizarre.
What's good? I mean, I know it's very hard to predict, but what's going to happen next? Because I don't think Israel will give up, even though they are clearly they know that Iran is not as easy target as they think it is. But I don't think Israel will stop. And then also from Iranian side, I saw your conversation with Glenn Deason and Mearsheimer. So you guys are saying, Mearsheimer was saying that, from Iranians' perspective, they probably are much safer if they have nuclear bomb. Because look at this North Korea, right? So
Mm.
nobody dare to bomb North Korea. So from their perspective, even though, they say they don't want to, but just from a purely practical viewpoint, it's probably safer for them to acquire one. So what do you think going to happen next?
Well, I think that is now a very, very real possibility. I
Mm,
think we are much closer to a nuclear bomb in Iran than we were 3 weeks ago. I mean,
okay.
all the indications 3 weeks ago were that the Iranians were negotiating in good faith to
Mhm.
come to an agreement to place limits on their nuclear enrichment program, and that they were not working towards acquiring a nuclear bomb. I mean, this is something we haven't discussed. I think we discussed it last week, that this attack was launched even as negotiations were underway, negotiations being conducted by Iran in good faith, with the United States also saying that the negotiations were making progress, and with Russia also participating
Mhm.
as an active third party in the negotiations. So, the Iranians have now been shown that they can't have any confidence in American negotiators. They've also, and this is disastrous, been shown that they can have no confidence in the International Atomic Energy Agency, which not only provided an entirely phony pretext to justify this attack, but the Iranians believe has been leaking information about Iran's facilities, confidential information about its facilities to Israel and the United States, including the identities and whereabouts of some of the scientists who were
Mhm.
involved in the program, who were as a result assassinated.
Mhm.
And we also have seen open threats being made to assassinate the spiritual and political leader of Iran.
Mhm.
So, when the Iranians see all of this, they're going to say to themselves, obviously, we have got to acquire nuclear weapons because these people are faithless. We can't negotiate with them. And they are crazy. They want to destroy us. Now, I don't want to see Iran acquire nuclear weapons. I want to make that absolutely clear. I think it would be a very dangerous thing. It would be the beginning of the end of the whole nuclear non-proliferation treaty and everything that it stands for. I don't think China wants to see that happen. I been discussing in several programs that there was a key meeting in Qingdao
Yeah.
of defense, yes, of the defense ministers of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. I'm sure that was a meeting that was scheduled a long, long time ago. I don't think it was set up in connection with these events, but it was timely that it was taking place there. I think the Chinese defense minister chaired the meeting. The Iranian defense minister attended. I think the Chinese definitely, and the Russians also, will have told the Iranian defense minister, look, we understand your concerns. We understand all that has happened. But we still don't want Iran to develop a nuclear weapon. What can we do to help Iran within reason that would dissuade you from doing that? And I suspect that those discussions were taking place. It's not that the Chinese and the Russians want to become involved in a conflict like this. It's that, as I said, they probably understand, as the Americans and the Israelis apparently don't, that the Iranians now have every incentive to move forward with a nuclear weapons program.
Yeah, I mean that's what the Chinese netizens discussions is about, right? They have talked about this for a while. Like if the United States accusing any country to have a weapon of mass destruction, you better have it. You know, so you're safer to have it than not to have it. So,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yes. Absolutely. I mean, North Korea. By the way, China did everything it could to dissuade North Korea from going nuclear. There were negotiations, and again, the Americans acted with incredible bad faith. They even came to an agreement with North Korea in the 1990s that if North Korea abandoned its nuclear weapons program, the United States would provide North Korea with civilian nuclear reactors and would lift sanctions. And the North Koreans agreed, and they destroyed all of the facilities that they had built, which might have led to them acquiring nuclear weapons. And as soon as that happened, the Americans went back on what they had agreed and started talking openly about regime change. And that was what led North Korea, against China's earnest desires to go nuclear. And it could very well turn out to be the same with Iran. And bear in mind that Iran and North Korea are close friends.
Yeah. Yeah, every time, yeah, it's not like there is no sound voices within the United States. You know, there are attempts trying to get some deal, but then there's always stronger forces destroy it. You know, but they always do that, sabotage it. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Lawrence Wilkinson, Lieutenant Colonel Lawrence Wilkinson, who was Colin Powell's chief of staff, and a sane and very good man, and who's participated in many of these discussions under George H.W. Bush and George W. Bush and Obama and all of these people. He's been involved in the American government. He says the other thing that you just cannot comprehend is how rude and aggressive these people who demand war are. How they shout, how they stamp the floor, how they swear. He says anybody who is not exposed to this cannot understand how crazy these people are and how difficult they are to control if you ever encounter them.